She was found in the middle of nowhere, a body reduced to ashes in a California field. But what surrounded that scene of horror was even more terrifying. The grass was intact, green and immaculate. There were no footprints, no tire marks, nothing. It was as if she had been placed there by the fire itself. This is the story of Annie McKenna, the woman who, in 2006, became the center of one of the most disturbing cases in modern criminal history. A case that borders on the supernatural and that to this day, no one can explain. Yuba County, California, June 18, 2006. A summer day like any other, until a farmer, surveying his land, spotted something unusual in the distance. A dark stain against the green of the field. As he approached, his world stopped. It was what remained of a human being, charred, and around it, only the peaceful, untouched landscape. This narrative delves deep into the archives of this unsolvable case. If you are fascinated by mysteries that defy logic, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to help us bring more stories like this one. When the Yuba County Sheriff's investigators arrived, they were faced with a puzzle that defied all known laws of physics. Annie McKenna, a 74-year-old woman, was charred in a fetal position. The burning was so intense that only part of her torso and one leg remained recognizable. The skull was calcined. But the great mystery was on the ground. The grass around the body was perfectly green and without any sign of burning. There was no trail of fire. The ignition seemed to have been perfectly contained to her body. How is this possible? And how did she get there? The location was isolated, in the middle of an open field more than 300 meters from the nearest road. The police scoured the area looking for any trace, a footprint, a broken branch, a strand of hair caught on a bush, marks that the body had been dragged. Nothing. The ground was completely untouched. It was as if Annie had materialized at that exact point and then simply caught fire. The autopsy brought more questions than answers. Annie had a significant amount of sleeping pills and painkillers in her system, enough to leave her deeply sedated. But that's not what killed her. The cause of death was undeniable: smoke inhalation and terrible burns. However, the experts found a crucial detail. There were traces of isopropanol, rubbing alcohol, on her clothes and body. That's when the official theory emerged. Spontaneous human combustion. Yes, that urban legend, the phenomenon everyone laughs at until it appears in a coroner's report. The theory was that the medication had left her disoriented. She might have spilled the alcohol on herself, perhaps to clean herself or out of confusion, and then a spark. Maybe from a lighter, maybe from a cigarette. The highly flammable alcohol would have incinerated her fatty body, acting like a candle. The slow-burning human fat would explain why the fire remained contained and did not spread to the grass. But the flaws are glaring. First, how did a 74-year-old woman, intoxicated by sleeping pills, manage to walk over 300 meters on uneven terrain in the dark, without stumbling, without leaving a single trace, and stop exactly at that specific point? Second, where was the ignition source? No lighter or cigarette was found near the body. And third, spontaneous human combustion has never been scientifically proven. It is a concept rejected by most forensic experts. What if Annie wasn't alone? This is the question that haunts anyone who studies this case. The lack of footprints is the biggest question mark. If she walked there, her footprints should have been in the morning dew. If someone carried her, that person would also have left marks. Unless they were extremely careful. Or unless something else happened. Rumors emerged. Some locals, in reports suppressed from the main files, mentioned strange activities in that area that night. Unusual lights in the sky, whispers about a lonely elderly woman with a difficult past. Is it possible that Annie McKenna was the victim of something, or someone who managed to literally erase their footprints from the world? The official investigation, pressured by the strangeness of the case, closed the file as accidental death. But the local sheriff admitted in interviews that this was the strangest case of his career, a case he could never forget. The case of Annie McKenna remains open in the minds of the curious, a monument to our lack of understanding. Was it a bizarre accident? A tragedy fueled by an improbable sequence of events? Or was it something more? Something we are not prepared to accept? The witch of Yuba County was not a witch. She was an elderly woman with her own problems and pains. But her death took on a macabre air, a veil of mystery that science cannot completely tear apart. And this leads us to the final question, the one that echoes after the story ends. If Annie didn't walk to that field alone, then who or what put her there? And why was the fire so selective, destroying only the victim and leaving the world around her completely untouched? This case is a puzzle with missing pieces, and perhaps you have a theory. Perhaps you believe in science, or perhaps you think there are forces we do not yet understand. Comment below, what do you think really happened to Annie McKenna on that night in 2006? Share this mystery with someone who loves a good enigma. And stay alert, because the line between the terrible and the inexplicable is thinner than we imagine.